Boys and girls, men and ladies, people of the internet, I have finally sat down to make a long format video. Today's topic of discussion is going to be, should you actually move to the Philippines? Now, most of you are probably men. Most of you probably have similar reasons, or one similar reason you think you want to move to the Philippines, and the rest are residual benefits, if you will, additional benefits. So, if you haven't lived here before, you've probably read stuff online. Good for you. But a lot of the stuff you read, a lot of the videos you see make it seem like it's all rainbows and sunshine out here. It's not. So, I'm here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, and if you should really move here or not. Now, most of you guys are probably thinking how great it will be when I move to the Philippines and get me a young supermodel to live with me every day of my life and cook and clean and wash my dirty, nasty underwear. If you're moving here for those reasons, you're coming here for the wrong reasons. And I guarantee you'll never find that person. And if you do, it'll only be temporary. Many of you have probably looked into the cost of living. Don't feed into it. While your rent may be less here, your day-to-day expenses, if you're a foreigner, are probably going to be very similar. The reason I say that is because prices, things you do, everything is very similar globally right now. You might be looking at it on paper and saying, wow, I'm only going to pay $400 or $500 a month for rent. That's true. But have you called the tower and asked them how much your electrical rate is? No, you haven't. And just so you know, your electrical rate is double or triple the utility price in the tower. But I want to live in the province, Todd. Okay. There is a can of worms type of problem that happens when you live in the province. Anything from a flat tire to other things that can go wrong while you live in provinces, right? Provinces are great. I love being in the province. However, for foreigners, I would always advise finding a province that you enjoy, or multiple provinces, and visiting the province. And when you get tired, return to your main city of choice. This video will discuss quite a few different topics that we'll just briefly touch base on, that drill home the original point of the video, which is, should you move to the Philippines? Okay, let's just start with income. Okay, more and more companies are no longer doing 401ks, they're no longer doing pensions, all these things. So if you're not able to work remote and you don't have some kind of trust fund check, a lottery investment check, a rich Uncle Billy that thinks he could just send you money every day, something like this, and you can't actually physically stay here, and you're thinking of getting involved with a young lady, it's probably bad news if you think it's going to get serious. The reason I say that is because people have needs, both you and her. Oh, but my girl's loyal and so am I. Maybe that's true for 1 to 5% of relationships, okay? But if you're coming and going every month or 2 or 6, and you're gone for 1 or 2 or 3 or 6 months on top of that, it will erode the relationship. Filipinas and their families are very close, and you will become a part of that unit, like it or not. And if you're not able to become a part of that unit, and you are frequently abroad, your core relationship with your lovely Filipina partner will most likely, inevitably be doomed. Now, that being said, if you're in a position where you're working and you're about to retire in a year or maybe two, you could stretch it to maybe two, you might be able to come here and hang on to a relationship for the first year or two and then retire and settle here. Back to costs. The costs always look less on paper. I promise you they're not. I don't care what other people say. I don't care what other foreigners say, what other YouTube channels say. I'm not saying they're lying. I'm just saying that their quality of life is not what a average foreigner would deem it should be, whatever that means. Okay, for example, if you want to be a bum and sit in your house all day and not take your lovely Filipina to the movie theater or to the mall or to the aquarium or on a trip to the next island, which requires a hotel and travel and food on the plane and all these things that you do being a grown man, then your cost of living is not going to be less. And if you're just sitting around with your girlfriend all day, good luck on that one. Not advisable. Yes, the day-to-day cost of living is less, but when you factor in travel costs, entertainment costs, and all these other extraneous circumstances that can happen, the day-to-day living cost is the same, if not more. I can assure you of that. My day-to-day budget in the United States was something like 3 to 4, and right now I'm living at a 6 to 10 level. Okay? You can put the pieces of those numbers together in your own heads. The atmosphere, you're going to have to get used to things moving slower, less efficiently, people not being able to keep track of simple things like time. In the West, we're very punctual. Things are very orderly and clean. There is no gray area. If you broke the speed limit, you get a ticket. If you jaywalk, you get a citation, right? There's no gray area. Here, things are a lot different. For the most part, in most areas, things are not clean. So you're going to have to get used to the dinginess of things and stop caring about your little clothes, because they will get sweaty and they will get dirty if you have to sit on a street corner. For your timeliness, if someone says they'll meet you at 2, that probably means 2:30 or 3. Better to be in the area close by at 2 or 2:15 doing something you enjoy and wait for them to say they've gotten there, and then you show up a second or two after them. Because I can assure you, almost every single person you meet or spend time with or whatever it might be will be late to a point that would be considered disrespectful in the West. Not just one time, but every time. Some other points to touch base on is traffic conditions in the city. Traffic out here in especially Manila and even Cebu. Manila's probably 2 or 3 times worse than Cebu. But traffic was going to rival New York City, and in rush hour, it's going to be worse than New York City. It's going to be complete gridlock. Cebu won't be complete gridlock, but it'll still be pretty bad. Is the Philippines right for you to move to? I always advise newcomers to spend a month or 2 out here and see how they like it first. I also always advise newcomers to never land or spend any time in Manila first. Pay the extra $100 or $200 to come to Cebu first. That way your initial experience of the Philippines is not tainted, okay? Also, you need to consider, if you have income and this and that, what your obligations are back home. You say you want to move here. Do you have a house? Do you have a child? Do you have a dog? Do you have any obligations back home that require frequent traveling? And even if you don't, if you want something serious done, dental, a serious surgery, whatever serious type of thing might be that you can only, those are some simple examples, but serious stuff that you can only do in the United States or whatever Western country you're from, that will require a ticket back to your Western country and then another ticket back to the Philippines. Average cost of tickets is between $1,000 and $1,800, excuse me. So you need to allot for that budget as well. When you land, something to consider is don't even waste your time with a hotel. But Todd, I've never spent never done Airbnb. You'll be fine. It's better than hotels, everything about them. A hotel here, the rooms are going to be, for the most part, much smaller. You're going to spend about 10 times the amount of money, between 3 and 10 times the amount of money on a hotel than you will an Airbnb. So, and you're getting a smaller room with no fridge, no amenities. You won't even have like a real TV. It's just terrible. So, also these hotels are not located in like good areas. Some of them are, but they're just, it's just weird. Okay, the hotels are just weird. If you stay in hotels, you know exactly what I mean. They're just weird. People are tired of them. So find yourself an Airbnb. When you book your Airbnb, if you want to stay in that same Airbnb for a good length of time, say a month or more, you're going to have to book this Airbnb 2 or 3 months in advance, because these weirdos fly into the Philippines and book an Airbnb for one day, and that's been booked for the past 2 or 3 weeks. So if you try to book it for a month, you can't. And you're going to have to check out of that Airbnb and check into another one, which is a hassle. I do that regularly myself because I actually enjoy the hassle. It's a cognitive shift in the mind that gets you to enjoy a new space, a new place. But most of you guys might not enjoy that hassle. So I'm trying to give you a little bit of game. Is the Philippines for you? Well, first off, you don't have Walmart here, you Americans. So when you come here, if you want things, you're going to have to piece it together. For example, Madame and I went down for groceries. All we needed was a simple ice tray. One would think that surely they would sell a 50 to 80 cent Chinese priced ice tray in the grocery store, but they don't. And the grocery store is in the basement of the mall. So we have to migrate all the way to floor 3 of the mall to go into the home store, True Value, to get the ice tray. As I mentioned in my other videos, businesses here are not like they are in the States. In the States, you can go into one mega store and buy basically everything you need except power tools and lumber, and which is Walmart. And for the power tools and lumber, we have our other store, Home Depot and or Lowe's. And basically between those two stores, you can get everything under the sun you need. Here it's a lot different. If you need food, you're going to have to make a trip to the supermarket. Gather your items, wait in the insanely long Filipino line because cash is handled slower, transactions are done slower. You should expect to be in line anywhere between 10 and 30 minutes. Then you'll have to go get your home whatever items from the True Value. Then you'll have to go to another store to get like knickknacks, like Madame needed a hair clip, so I went and got the hair clip from a different store. All of this stuff is not in one centralized store. So there's a lot more running around to be done, and therefore it requires a much higher level of patience than we're used to having on a day-to-day basis in the West. Some of the things, should you move here, I've definitely talked about this in other videos, are like just like general street smarts. Like it's really, really bad out here if you let yourself get taken advantage of, and especially in front of your partner. Like they'll lose respect for you really quick. Like Example, if you get in a taxi, if it's a 10-minute taxi ride and the taxi driver tells you 500. Well, first off, you didn't ask the taxi driver to turn on the meter, so you already lost. Secondly, a 10-minute taxi ride is not going to be 500 pesos. It's going to be like 150, like no more than like 250. And if it's just full traffic, it's going to be maybe 300. But I get it. As a foreigner, a 10-minute taxi ride costs us $35, $40. So to us, we get hit with that price when we first get here, 500. That's $8 or $9 right now, today's exchange rate. The time I'm making this video, you think, wow, what a great deal, and you hop in the cab. The cab driver knows it's not a great deal. Your girl knows it's not a great deal, but she's scared to say something because she's maybe not from the city, whatever. If she is from the city, a lot of times these city girls will be getting kickbacks from cab drivers and clubs and bars for every drink you buy or every extra peso you spend. So you got to be careful of that one too if you're talking to city girls. But the point is that everybody knows you overpaid, and then on top of all of that, you're giving all of us a bad name and bad reputation, and you're going to make it easier for that taxi driver to go and tell, or tricycle driver, whoever, to go and tell all his friends that they got you. And then they're going to try to get the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. And the minute that we all start discussing pricing and knowing pricing and holding firm to this type of pricing is the same minute that we all start to get respected and have to stop dealing with that nonsense every day. So the point is that when you come out here, you have to be street smart. And it's like, are you prepared for that? Because every single day, all day, I see 5, 10, 20 foreigners just getting straight hustled by these people. And it's just sad. Because that person either doesn't know better, which I hope, or they don't have any self-respect for themselves. Or both. Coming here, I mean, a lot of this video is going to be discussing what is like hard out here, because I can sit here and talk about the pros of coming here. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, it has 7,000 blah, blah, blah islands. Beautiful girls. Blah, 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 blah. Nice culture. Everybody's friendly. Blah, 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 blah. But you've already seen those videos. So I'm trying to discuss the real side of the Philippines to make you really think about if you want to come here. So something I want to discuss is a foreigner dating a Filipina. Most of the time, when a foreigner dates a Filipina, they will never date any other culture or ethnicity or race or whatever you want to call it outside of Filipina ever again for the rest of their lives. And the same goes for a Filipina woman. Once she starts dating foreigners, she will never date a Filipina man ever again. And I will explain. And this is important to understand if you really want to come here, because are you ready? Are you prepared for what I would consider a positive culture shock and a negative culture shock in some ways for the male, and a positive and negative culture shock that happens to the Filipina female? So when you come here, the culture and the women are more hospitable and friendly and kind and sweet most of the time than any other woman or culture you will meet on the planet. They're very cuddly and snuggly and attentive and sweet and nice and kind, unless they get upset. And as men from the West, we're not used to that all the time. So the question is, are you prepared for that level of attention and stuff? Because once you get here, if you have to leave, you're going to feel, I don't want to use the word empty because that might be a little strong, but you're going to feel like you want to come back very, very bad. And the question will be at that point, do you have the means to get back? Or do you have the ability to wrap up your loose ends in your home country and get back here? Because if you don't, well, you're probably going to have a sad remainder of your life, because you'll never have a Filipino woman in your life again, which really sucks if you don't have one. And I hope if you're watching this video and you don't have one and you want to come here, you get here soon and experience it, because it's a beautiful thing if you get the right one. It could be a terrible thing if you get the wrong one. It could be like your worst nightmare, straight out of a book of hell, worse than any Mexican woman you've ever heard of. Now, the Filipino woman, on the other hand, when they experience life with a foreigner, this is also going to be unlike anything that they've experienced either in their house, at home, or dating a Filipino male. Most Filipino males, not all Filipino males. But also I've heard things about most Filipino males that they treat women differently than the foreigners. I don't know. I'm not a Filipino male. That's just what I've heard, whatever. So you have to realize, and I'll give you a very simple example, and this is one of many reasons I have a lot of respect for a lot of Filipino families. The majority of Filipino families' living condition, if we're to compare it to something in the USA, we all know somebody that's been locked up in the USA. The person in the United States jail or prison or whatever that gets no money sent to them for any extra food, he doesn't have any clothes that he bought off commissary, canteen, whatever. He's just in a straight jail jumpsuit or prison issue clothes. He's eating 3 trays a day, living in his cell. He doesn't have nothing coming in from the outside. He got no family, no friends, no, he got nothing except the prison. That man's living conditions are better than the majority of Filipinos families the way that they're living. So that might be a complete shock to you watching this video. Oh wait, Todd, how is the man that's getting no money sent to him in a prison in the United States living better than an average Filipino family from a food or standard of living standpoint? Let me explain. So the average Filipino family unfortunately doesn't have any air conditioning. Almost every prison in the United States does have air conditioning. The average Filipino family most likely will not have meat every single meal. In an American prison, you have meat every single meal. Yeah, full course. You might even have multi-course meal. You have TV inside a prison in the States. Most of these families don't have access to television, especially like a cable or a satellite, which most of the jails and prisons have. Access to newspapers and reading material, books, educational material inside the prisons. Most of these families don't have access to it either. If they do, it's subpar at best, because a lot of the families don't even have the means, unfortunately, to get their children to school. You have to realize that they're making between $4 and $10 US a day, maybe even nothing if they're not able to get work in their local province. So how do you put gasoline in the motorbike? Because gas is about $4 a gallon here. About 65 to 85 pesos a liter, depending on your geographic location in the country. So if you can't afford the gasoline in the motorbike and your family doesn't know anybody that has a motorbike, especially if you're in a really remote area in the province that doesn't even have a van or anything, you can't get to school. And if you do get to school, if you really, really want to go to school and you're a kid, I know kids that are so deep in the province that they have to walk 3 hours to school one way. Imagine doing that from grade 1 all the way through grade 12. You're so far away from the school that your parents don't even come to any of the school time with the parents and the kids because they don't want to walk there. It's too far, these older people. So I say all that to say this, back to the original point of do you really want to come here, and how when the Filipino female meets you, their entire life changes too, just like your entire life will change, because their living environment has been so much different than a foreigner's that how in the world could they ever physically or mentally go back to dating and the average Filipino male? It's just extremely unlikely to happen. So this to the Western man and the Filipino female is a gift, and it's also a curse. For the Western man, it's a gift because he gets to, if he's with the right Filipina, he gets to experience all this sweet joy and happiness and all this stuff. But if for some reason, because of finances or medical necessity or some sort of COVID situation happens and he's forced back into his country, now it's a curse because he gets ripped away from his little slice of heaven. Same with the Filipino woman. She's dating the foreigner. If he has to leave or if they break up or whatever, it was great while they were together. It was a blessing. It was a big gift, unlike anything she ever experienced in her whole life. But now that he's gone, it's a curse because now she has to date around. Now she has to talk to other people. Now her heart's broken. She might have to move back home forever or a while or however long she has to move back home. I don't know. It depends on a lot of things. But that's the reality.